Hello, it is Monday, and we are getting to talk about a really fun topic today. I really want to talk about where you may be self-destructing. So, I'm going to show you a process that we use with our clients today. I'm not going to be able to take you through the whole thing because it takes a while to really understand the whole breakdown. There's 10 different levels to this process. 10 different areas of your life that you can use this in. So I'm going to take you through the basics because I want you to start having an understanding of what is going on with your life and where you may be not realizing it, if you do realize it, where you may be self-destructing and not making choices that help support you in your journey and where you want to go. Anthony's not going to be able to join us today. He is in the middle of another project right now, which is just taking his attention away from this, but I am here, so that's awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, I actually have a screen share for you guys today. So you may want to screenshot this, but I want to show this process to you in a moment. But what I have found working with clients for 13, 14 years in this particular health process, and then working with clients actually in business and sales and marketing before that, that there are parts as business owners or as people looking to heal, anyone who's looking to alter their life experience to be something different, we fall into these categories of potential self-destruction or, and we've been talking about this for weeks, moving into something called resilience. And resilience is when you have a challenge that you're able to bounce back from. When we're in self-destruction, we're going the wrong direction, and the challenges are working against us. The challenges aren't helping to make us stronger so we can bounce back and get up to new levels of healing and new levels of life experience. The challenges are putting us in a position where we are destructing, and it's doing damage to who we are. So let me show you this. Hopefully you can see this. It's very tiny on this screen. It is not clear to me how I can make this that much bigger. Here, let's try this. So I'm going to disappear for a minute and you guys can look at this. But basically, let's look at this process. And even if you can't fully read all the words right here, I want you to just get the feel for it. So the one all the way at the top, the self-love resilience side, that's what we're starting to look for. That's what we want. We want more resilience. We want to be better at bouncing back. We want to learn and grow from the experiences that we are having, especially in the moments of challenge. All the way at the bottom, you're going to see more of a self-abandonment. This is when we totally abandon who we are. We shut down. We go into freeze mode. We are not taking action. We are not doing anything. And the actions we may be taking are not supporting us. So at any given time, you're on this scale at any point in your life. There's different areas of our life. There's our physical life. There's our romantic life. There's our relationships outside of the romantic lives. There is the mental, emotional, there's the physical, there's the spiritual. There's all these different areas of our life. But for right now, rather than overcomplicating this, I want you to look at this scale, and I'm going to go through each of the pieces of it to start looking at where you may have opportunities where you could overall start enhancing your life. So if you look at the very top, again, represented by the butterfly, of course, is where you're in what we're all shooting for really ultimately, which is this self-love or this full activated resilience side of who we are. I want you to think for a moment how that would feel. Or when you felt that before, how did it feel? And I mean, how did it feel emotionally? What emotions were wrapped around that? How did it feel physically? Like what physical sensations were you noticing or feeling? So when you feel self-love, when you feel resilient, when you feel like you're all that, when you feel like a total badass, how does that feel? Now, some of you are like, oh, I have to dig a little to really remember what that would feel like. Some of you are like, no, I'm feeling that for some things right now in my life and maybe not others. Or there's a recent past where you remember. And some of you are like, I don't know if I've ever felt it. All of it's fine. If you feel like you've never felt it, I want you to imagine what it would feel like. For those of you who have felt it before, I want you to kind of go back into that moment and think, how did that feel? What sensory experience were you having? What was the emotion that was connected to the moment where you were feeling like resilient and in self-love and totally supportive of yourself and confident in who you were standing in that moment? And I want you to start looking at it from an emotional feeling as well as a physical feeling. And the reason I'm asking you to do both is because often when we're in a space where we aren't resilient, when we're in a space where we feel more self destructive, what happens physiologically, what happens in the brain, what happens in the subconscious is we separate out our mind from our body. And really, we're a whole body. We want both to be connected. And a defense mechanism, a trauma response, is when we disconnect, right? Is when we don't fully connect to both our mind and our body, and they're not one working together. So when I ask clients a lot of times, how does that feel? When they give me just a physical response, I know that they're separating from the emotional piece. When they give me just an emotional answer and they don't tell me the physical response, I also know there's a separation, right? When people are more easily able to give me an answer on both, and a lot of times I'll say, how do you feel about that? And they'll still give me a thinking response. They'll say, well, I think I could, and that's more of a mental response, right? And this is just information to start understanding, am I starting to separate out how I feel from what I think, from what my body is telling me? Because we want all those things working together. So as you slide up and down this scale, so let's go through what's in this scale. We've got the self-love resilience piece. A little bit further down, we've got self-appreciation, where you appreciate your circumstances, you appreciate the people around you, you appreciate yourself. And really, I'm leaning into the self-appreciation part. You know, a lot of people struggle with the idea of gratitude because they can say, oh, well, I'm grateful for my spouse, or I'm grateful for my children, or I'm grateful for my job, or I'm grateful for, and they can name a bunch of things. But a lot of times they're not on that list. And if you are not able to connect with the vibration of gratitude for self, you will be more likely to be self-destructive or self-ignoring or self-abandoning. And when we self-abandon and we only look outside of ourselves and we can only connect that feeling of gratitude towards something outside of ourselves, there's work that can be done in the healing process, right? So then we have self-acceptance, which is a little bit lower than that self-appreciation. Again, it's just another level to this. Where we accept who we are. We may not be thrilled with the exact spot that we're in, but we accept who we are in this moment. And a lot of people struggle with that because they're in self-shame or self-blame. Well, I should be better by now. I should have lost weight by now. I should have been able to stop one of the addictions maybe that I'm in. Maybe I should stop overeating, or maybe I lean on cannabis too much, or maybe I lean on alcohol too much. And what happens is we're not just accepting that we're humans, we're flawed humans in this moment. We run ahead and we blame and we shame ourselves for not being better than we are in this moment. And that's not accepting self, right? So we then, a little bit lower on the scale on that, is self-understanding, where you're starting to come to an understanding of why you are who you are, why you make the choices that you do, why you've taken the actions you have in the past. I was having a client meeting this morning where I was talking to her about her back history. And she had a very abusive mother, and she had a father who kept claiming he was going to help support them and support the kids, but he wasn't stepping in to protect them from this very abusive mother. So over time, she felt she was being abandoned by her father, who was there to supposedly do it. Verbally, he was saying he was going to protect her. But as we continued to talk about that, we started being able to understand why she made some of the choices that she did to protect herself. And a lot of the shame started going away. And a lot of the idea, the repositioning of who she was and who she was felt she was forced to be started shifting. And then her perception of who she is in this moment today started shifting. Because when you can understand, even if you can't make the choices in this moment to change any of it, but you can understand where it came from, it's amazing how many things can shift. When you're more of a self-awareness, this is a little bit beneath the self-understanding, where you start to become aware that you're making choices, or aware that you're doing things or having behaviors or thoughts that aren't serving what you say you want to get to. And when you start understanding that, you start having an acceptance, you start having an awareness, that's when you can start becoming more resilient, because your awareness isn't shut down. And that for a lot of our clients, when they get into that awareness, it's amazing how things shift over. Self disappointment is a little bit lower on the scale. This is when we look at everything, like I was saying before, and you're just disappointed in your behavior. You're disappointed in yourself. You haven't reached the goals that you thought you'd reach by the time you turned 50. Your life isn't what you expected it to be. So you're just kind of more in this disappointment stage, right? A little bit lower than that, a little bit harsher, is a self-judgment. This is when we're judging ourselves for what we've done so far. I should have known better. I am smarter than this. I should have been able to do these things by now. I shouldn't have reacted that way. A lot of shouldings, right? I should have. Shoulding all over yourself, right? You get a little bit harsher on yourself. This is when we start to criticize. You're so stupid. How could you have done something so dumb? Maybe you don't deserve to heal. Maybe you don't deserve the type of person that you want to partner with for your life experiences. Maybe you don't deserve to have the business that you say you've always wanted because I'm just too dumb. I can't make good choices. I'm not worth it. And then that pushes us further into something called self-disgust, where we're just so disgusted with ourselves. I can't even look at you. I can't even with you. We're just disgusted by the behavior that we've had so far, the thoughts that we have, or the actions that we've taken. And that's where you find a lot of people where they're really at the bottom of this list, when they're at self-abandonment, where they're just abandoning themselves completely. And they're doing things just to numb themselves all the time and to avoid. Right? And this is where we really lean hard into other things outside of ourselves. We lean hard into potentially drugs or alcohol or food. Or we make choices that actually hurt us more because we think we deserve it. And we abandon our core self. We abandon our true center. And this is where we struggle a lot. So I'm going to come back to this and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about it. But I want you to kind of take a deep breath and give yourself some permission right here to be honest with yourself and not further loathing of self, but really open to the idea that you have the opportunity to slide up or down the scale at any given time. But in the end, when you start moving into things like the understanding or the awareness part, you can actually start influencing where on the scale you fall in that moment. And you can't will your way into a side. You can't force your way into one side of the scale or another. But the more you start to be open to the idea that you can slide up the scale or down the scale, but that you could slide up the scale if you're open to receiving what you need in order to get there, it's amazing how quickly you can start moving along the scale in any area of your life. And with our clients, we look at different areas of the life, because maybe in your business life, your career life, you're higher on the scale. But in your personal life, maybe your love life, you're way further down the scale. That's very normal. That's very common to be maybe in one side of the scale during certain parts of your life and other sides of the scale for different. What I want for you and how we work with our clients when we come to the healing, and we talk about healing from a physical standpoint, so there's a physiology component to this. We also talk about it from the emotional standpoint, the mental standpoint, and the spiritual standpoint. You're on this scale at any given time in any area of your life, but you ultimately have the ability, once you choose to receive the power and empower yourself, that if you're open to it, you can learn the skills that you need in order to move to the part of the scale that you want to be at. And you can start shooting towards it. Right? And what happens for a lot of people when they're on the lower part of the scale, they're in that self-abandonment. They start to go into a give up stage of, well, whatever happens, I guess I deserve it, and it's not fair. But oh well. But your core, inner, beautiful soul is looking for you to say, no, I'm not accepting that. That's not enough. I don't deserve this. No matter what my life looked up until this moment, that was part of my learning journey. And it was happening for me, not necessarily to me. But when you see the world as happening to you, that's when we fall into this disempowered state where we feel like we have no control over anything. And when you allow yourself to move through this scale and see things as they are, and not as your wounds need you to see them to justify how bad you feel, all you have to do is start to be open that it could be different than it is in this moment. And that perhaps you just don't have the skills right now to move up anywhere else. But if you can be open, you can choose to be open. It's amazing how the rest of your body will follow suit. So if you're on this right now and this is resonating with you, I want you to breathe into that resonation. I want you to feel where that idea, that resonation, where this makes sense in a way. And I mean sense logically, but I also mean sense like you're resonating with it physically. I want you to kind of allow yourself to drop into the space in your body that is telling you this makes sense. This is resonating. Now, for you hyper logical people, you're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about, Kirsten? What do you mean, where in my body does that live? Those of you who are hyper connected to the body, you might be over feeling this right now. But what I can promise you is that your physical body is talking to you. Your emotional body is talking to you. Your mental body is talking to you. You just may not have the skill set to be very strong at recognizing that connection. And that is something that can absolutely be learned. You just need the tools to get there. So for those of you who this feels hard for, I just want you to think about it for a moment. Where in my body could this resonation really live? This understanding, this what you're saying, Kirsten, makes sense. Where would that live in you? Is it in your chest? Is it in your belly? Is it in your gut? Is it maybe feeling like it's just resonating like right above your head? Are you feeling it? Maybe you're feeling a headache or something like right here. Maybe it's in your throat because you can feel it. Maybe it's coming from your toes or in your spine somewhere. Maybe it's vibrating down your arms and legs. What I can tell you with certainty, we're all designed, we're all of us, not some of us, not those chosen few. We're all sensory beings. So you have the ability to have a sense, a response to everything that's happening to you. And then we have a thought about it. We have a feeling and emotion that's connected to it. Even if you're like, I don't feel anything, you've just done a really good job of disconnecting from knowing what that vibration feels like. And the body, when we're not responding to the emotional response the body is having, the body will try to find a different way to communicate with you. So it will come at you through a physical standpoint. So maybe that's the explanation for the core reason why some of you have back pain, or you get migraines, or you have digestion issues that can't be explained, or you have heart palpitations, or you wake up at 3 a.m. every night, or you can't seem to lose weight no matter what happens, or your hormones are going out of balance despite your better efforts. And your doctors are telling you, well, you're in perimenopause or you're going through menopause. So, oh, well, that happens. And what I can tell you with certainty, and if you've seen me do anything before, you know this, I will talk about this, is that the body's always talking to you. Always. That communication, you've just done a really good job, especially as a defense mechanism, especially if you've had traumas in your life. Little t traumas and big T traumas will cause your body to physically react differently to certain stimulus and to certain thoughts and to certain beliefs and to certain experiences. And if you want to be higher on this scale than you are in different areas of your life, if you want to start vibrating more in these top 3, self-acceptance, self-appreciation, self-love with resilience, you want to start vibrating most of the time in those top 3 areas, you have the opportunity to do it. You just may never have been taught on how to get there. And or there may be a trauma response that's hidden underneath the surface, which is where trauma lies. It lives under the surface. It lives in our subconscious. It lives in our body response that you may not even realize is there, or you know it's there, but you don't know how to get rid of it. You don't know how to dissolve it. You don't know how to understand why it was there in the first place and what the conversation is that's still happening for you right now. But if you're living below those top three in any area of your life, then there's some work that is available for you to do if you're open to receive it. And that's the part that you have to make a decision on is, am I open to receive the learning and not just dig into the self-loathing? Because we have clients every day who shift what's going on in their lives based on first being open to it shifting. Because some of us are just in this position where we're just so used to feeling like nonsense physically, mentally, or emotionally. We're so used to the chaos. We're so used to it not being fair. We're so used to feeling like everyone's against us that we start looking, whether we realize it or not, we look for situations that proves our belief. I have clients all the time telling me, I want to lose weight. I want to feel better. I want to get rid of these autoimmune conditions. I want to fix my thyroid issue. And some of them, it's so quick that their heads are spinning and they can't believe it. And some of them are like, but I feel so familiar. They start to realize I feel so familiar with this being sick. I don't know who I would be without it. I don't know who I would be without the chaos in my relationships. I don't know who I would be if I wasn't sick. And that's an understanding. That's awareness. And when we can get into more of that awareness, it's amazing how quickly the body can shift. So what I can promise you is that no matter what you're dealing with, whether it's a physical pain, whether it's an emotional pain, whether it's relationships in your life that aren't serving you right now, they all can be shifted. But you have to start here to do that. Because we can't make anyone else do anything different than they're already doing, but we can influence our lives and the people around us and the experiences that are happening around us by changing what's happening here in this moment now. And yes, may it have something to do with your nutrition? Absolutely, I'm a nutritionist. I'm always going to tell you that. May it have something to do with maybe medications that you may be taking? Absolutely. May it have something to do with maybe you need some different supplementation? Yes. But what I can also promise you is that there is an emotional response to this too. And there's a learning experience that you're ready for if you really, really want your life experience to change. You cannot just have, no matter who you listen to, no matter what expert is out there telling you it's just a physical thing, and if you just fix this one physical thing, then all your life will be better. And they're not also including that we are human beings, sensory beings. And if there's an emotional piece to no matter what's going on for you physically, they're missing a major piece of the puzzle. We are whole beings, emotional, mental, and physical. So the process that you're learning needs to attract or attach or connect all of those things back together. So, we have clients of, well, I've done some talk therapy. Oh, well, I've seen a therapist. Oh, well, I've done some spiritual healing. And that's awesome. But if you find you're doing all the right things and you're not getting the right response, or you've gotten to a certain point and then you kind of feel like you've hit a wall in your overall life experience healing, then there's some opportunities for you to learn a tool or a technique or a process that can get you where you want to go. And again, if this is resonating with you, I want you to lean into how it's resonating. How do you know it's resonating? What does it feel like physically? What's the emotion that's coming up? Is it hope? Is it excitement? Is it a vibration in your chest? There's a knowing that happens when we start to resonate with something. There's a lot of times unexplained connection where something just connects with you. It makes sense and you feel it. Lean into that, trust that. A lot of you have a trauma response to that knowing, that feeling, because you feel like you've trusted it before and you got burned, you got hurt. Someone harmed you in some way because you trusted it, you leaned into who you were. And that's, again, a trauma response. When we work with people, when they come to us, typically they're coming to us for physical symptoms. My thyroid is an issue. My doctor says that I need all this medication. I've been on medication for 15 years. I'm gaining weight and can't explain it, can't get it off no matter what I do. My autoimmune condition is flaring. I hit 40 and it seemed like it all went to hell. There's hair loss all of a sudden. There's a migraine issue. There's a digestive issue. They're just physical representations that you're out of balance and there's some opportunity for you. And if you want to start understanding how to move yourself higher on this resilience, this self-love scale, and get yourself out of some of the attack on self, the disappointment in self, the self-abandonment that a lot of us go into, especially when we've had traumas, and we've all had traumas to some level. Big T trauma, little t trauma. When little t traumas build on top of each other, they cause more, often we see, of a negative response on the body than the big T traumas because they're ignored. They're not accepted. They're not even recognized sometimes to be traumas because we were so used to it. So take a deep breath. If you're interested in seeing if this is resonating in a way and you're interested in having a conversation on how that could look for you, then pop yourself onto the calendars for our coaches to have a conversation, a resilience conversation with them. Go to nourish123.com/heal. We also just recently, and we talked about this last week, we literally just opened up a new, there it is, nourish123.com/heal. We'll have some clarity around this, really get into the conversation around learning more about you, what your goals are, what you're trying to do, where you think maybe you have some blocks, and come up with a really quick strategy on what you could be doing to move past that. And if it makes sense for us to have a conversation on what it would look like for you to work with us as a private client, we can do that. But if it doesn't make sense because it's not a good fit right now, that's fine too. But we just put a resilience quiz on the website. So if you want to just go to nourish123.com, there's a resilience quiz that pops up. You take that quiz. It'll give you the result of where you are in this burnout versus resilience, the self-attack kind of part where your body is just physically shutting down on some things. And then it will pop up a video if you'd like to watch further on explaining why this is happening. There are 3 major pitfalls that women specifically fall into, especially high-performing women. Women who typically get shit done. We're the badasses who typically get this stuff done, and you're asking us to do things. We tend to struggle with a lot of this more because we are leaning on pieces of who we are and who we were told we needed to be safe in our earlier lives that are actually working against us long-term in the healing process. So there's an entire video. It's a half-hour video. It's actually 28 minutes that goes through 3 other additional pitfalls that typically more high-performing women fall into that actually increases their likelihood of physical burnout, emotional burnout. It's an actual diagnostic code. Burnout is an actual diagnostic code for insurance purposes in conventional medicine because it's so commonly seen. And it's typically a collection of symptoms such as digestive issues, migraines, pain, fatigue, thyroid issues, adrenal dysfunction, hormone imbalance. And then doctors they kind of ignore the fact that you could actually heal from all this, and they start writing prescriptions. They'll give you mood-altering medications to try to force you out of it when there's more to it. Right? We're not trying to numb the body, and we're not trying to ignore or shove away the response the body's having. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. Right? Your body's screaming out that it needs help. I mean, think of a small child. If she was screaming out to you and she was screaming that she needed help, would you go in and just put a bandana over her mouth to shut her up? Just tape her mouth shut so she can stop screaming? No. You would get down on the level of that child and you would hold her and say, "What's wrong? Talk to me. Look me in the eye and let me know what's happening." So when was the last time you allowed yourself to have that conversation with you? Well, you took a deep breath and you said, what do you really need right now? And then when was the last time you feel you got the support that you needed in order to get where you were going? So if you're in a self-destructive space, what's actually beautiful about that, I know some of you are like, what? What's beautiful about that is it's another way your body's still trying to communicate with you because the body loves you and it's actually not trying to hurt you. But your subconscious is more interested in staying with what it's familiar with and what it thinks is going to keep it safe than doing something different. So this is when our conscious brain needs to get involved. Our adult self needs to step in and say, hey, I got you. I may be scared to death and I know change will make me a little worried, but I want something different than the life experience I'm having, or I'm going to keep leaning into this self-destructive behavior because it's what I know. It's what I'm familiar with. It's what I believe I deserve. Nobody wants to hurt themselves. Right? And those of us who want it to be different, we got to look in different places to get there because what got us here isn't going to get us to that highest level where we're looking for. Something else needs to be added to the story, or something else needs to be added to our toolbox. And what I can tell you is that I know how to get you there. I know the tools. I can show you the box. And our clients can tell you all day long about what that looks like. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I know you're 100% capable because you're here and you're having this conversation with me right now. Even if we're not specifically talking back and forth, I can feel you through the screen. So if this resonates with you, take that quiz. Just go to nourish123.com and take the resilience quiz. If you feel you're already there, you're like, I just want to have this conversation with you, put yourself on the calendar. Go to nourish123.com/heal. But at the very least, give yourself some grace and dig in and find that spot in you who wants to receive the shift, who wants to receive this healing, who wants to receive something different in the life experience that you're having. Because you can absolutely move up the scale here. Absolutely. All right. So deep breath. Lots going on today with this. And we're going to add more to all of this next week. But I'd love to see some of you popping onto the calendar. And I'd love to have a conversation with you about this if you feel that this is resonating at any level. Because you have the ability to learn, get the tools that you need to skyrocket. All right, you guys have a good rest of your week. And hopefully I'll see some